We are almost a quarter of the way through the fantasy season with week 4 in the books. And it is a fantasy managers hold your wide receivers close kind of week with both Malik Neighbors and Tyreek Hill losing the rest of their season with devastating knee injuries. This is Stat Chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar Alpha Play Chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally this boys. You're right.
Oh man, big bummer.
I felt the bleakness. I felt the bleakness. Yeah, the Malik one is a bummer. I feel bad for him. This is controversial. I have a harder time feeling bad for Tyreek Hill all in all, but I feel bad for his fantasy managers. No. Almost no players I will say that about.
Yeah, it's complicated when you get into people who you think might not be the best people, and you have a strong amount of evidence to suggest that they're really not good people. It's a little morally confusing as to what you should be rooting for. Am I rooting for bad things for this person? Should I root for bad things for any person, regardless of how good?
Right. What's actually good for your for you to be? Is it good for you to be rooting for? I know that's maybe too philosophical.
I think we can all agree that we're very sad about the Malik Neighbors injury. I was really excited because he's a super fun young player to watch, and he was getting a quarterback change. And I think the most likely outcome was that results in probably slightly worse or moderately worse fantasy production for him than with Russell Wilson, even though, we are noted Russell Wilson detractors. I just think from a fantasy standpoint, you probably get a lot less passing volume, but Dart was really, he looks really fun. It would have been really cool to watch Dart get to develop this season with Malik Neighbors as a pass catcher. Now we will have to watch him only with Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. So big bummer. Hope that, it's like from our perspective, like, oh no, my poor fantasy team, for my tens or hundreds or, thousands of dollars that Malik Neighbors was on. It's like, yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, as Malik Neighbors is like thinking about, 8 figures, 9 figures that this is potentially going to cost him for his career earnings. So it's kind of a bigger deal for that human, but that's enough philosophical discussion about season-ending injuries. Let's get into the quarterback chart.
Yeah, let's start off on the quarterback chart. So I have to add that to the stage, don't I? And so I guess the big kind of exciting thing, we compared and contrasted Drake May and Caleb Williams last week, and obviously, I guess Caleb Williams was the smash in week 3. Drake May continued to smash week 4, and Drake May obviously seems a little bit more matchup proof, whereas Caleb Williams a lot more volatile.
Yeah, I think these are just players that you really want on your teams right now. I mean, Caleb Williams, probably from like a best ball standpoint, you're very, very happy with him. From a managed league standpoint, it's probably like just a touch harder. You're still going to start him every week. You're just like, you might end up with outcomes where you're less happy. Drake May actually, it could have been, he really didn't have that much opportunity. I think he only attempted like 17 passes or something this week. Just the game script, got them to a place where they didn't really need to pass that much. They had the punt return touchdown. They're just putting an absolute beating down. So, but yeah, I think going forward, Drake May, Caleb Williams are like your prototypical year 2, breakout quarterbacks. They both run. I'm actually a little surprised at how muted is the wrong word, but muted the Drake May rushing has been so far this season. I kind of expected it to be a little bit more. Not that he hasn't been doing it, but yeah, I feel like that's kind of pulled back a little bit this year compared to last year, and that might just be like a development thing. As he has developed a little bit more, he's going to convert more of those drop back into actual pass attempts. And so that's better for his receivers if any of them were fantasy relevant. Probably like ever so slightly worse for him for fantasy, but overall, I think you're getting an overall efficiency boost and production boost from him. So it really, all comes out in the wash for him as a net positive. The other guy that kind of falls into this category, but is in a totally different part of the chart than these two, where he's a rushing quarterback. He's got like the big play upside, but the bottom can totally drop out on this guy in a way that it feels like May is a little more insulated from, and even Caleb feels a little more insulated from this than this player. It's Justin Fields. I mean, I don't know. Did you get to watch the whole game last night for the Jets?
I did watch a good amount of it. And what was it? Brees Hall said something along about the game. He said, teams will shoot themselves in the head or in the foot. Then we turn around and shoot ourselves in the head.
Yeah, I feel like Brees probably said it better than I can there, because the Jets they look pretty bad, which is, it's like borderline confusing to me, because I feel like the idea of the Jets offense should work, right? Like they have Brees Hall, who's a really efficient runner. He looks good every time he's touching the ball. He's a very, very, efficient pass catching back. He looks good in the receiving game as well. You have Garrett Wilson in any fantasy. Oh my God, could you imagine Garrett Wilson on the Patriots? Like, what would that guy do with Drake May throwing him the ball? Like Garrett Wilson on, I mean, my goodness, could you imagine Garrett Wilson on the Chiefs? Like, Wilson anywhere with a competent quarterback.
So I think the thing with Fields is, because the team is bad. When the team is bad, he's got like a good floor on, like, if you think about him in terms of fantasy points for dropback, because he's gonna hit bombs. He's going to have rushing yards. He's going to have rushing touchdowns. And then when he plays, when the Jets play well, probably a lot of that goes through him, from him playing well. And then when they're playing poorly, it means he gets lots of attempts, lots of dropbacks. So he actually had 27 attempts last night. I'm trying to find what his dropbacks were, but he had 35 dropbacks, and then 25 in week one. And so I guess you combine that dropback count with his rushing ability, that's still a pretty good fantasy quarterback. I think you're looking at a good fantasy quarterback. I guess the big concern is how long before the Jets kind of pull the plug. Are they going to pull the plug for Tyrod Taylor? I mean, probably not. I don't think they have anybody to like develop behind them. So that concern there is probably a lot more muted. But he's going to score points. And then you're right, with Garrett Wilson is just so good. He's so good that even in this like awful environment, he's still putting up points. He's still putting up good weeks. You really would have hoped for a better week against the Dolphins. The Dolphins do seem to be playing better recently. They played better. They played the Bills kind of tough. But yeah, it's more the same for Garrett Wilson, isn't it? Where like he's clearly really, really, really good, but the environment is just it's not quite what we hoped for. I'm still optimistic on Garrett Wilson just because he is so good. And even with Fields' volatility as a passer, he still does hit some pretty nice passes. I think you're still going to get some really good spike weeks out of Garrett Wilson. And like overall, his points scored this year is going to be solid. It's not going to crush you. I think you're not going to be. It's not.
So hypothetically, let's talk about Fields in a redraft context, and I want to ask you, like, pretend you can only roster one quarterback, Fields or this guy, and you tell me who you prefer, Fields or Daniel Jones.
That one's honestly, that one's pretty close. You probably feel a little bit better about Daniel Jones, just because like the environment you get the same. You get not the same rushing, but you do get kind of similar in terms of like he'll run. It's a much better environment. You're getting better passing efficiency. I guess the only thing I'd say about Daniel Jones is that if the wheels fall off there, like we're only 4 games in, right? Like we've seen quarterback reclamation project quarterbacks start really hot to start the year, and then the wheels fall off. That could be in play. But at this point, you probably do prefer Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I think it's Daniel Jones for me there, just because, like, going back to the game last night for Fields, that 4th and 1 where the rush attempt that turns into a 40-plus yard touchdown for him, that was really close to just being like a 15-yard loss, and everyone laughs at how bad Justin Fields is. The fact that he turned it into the 40-yard touchdown is like what makes him for fantasy, right? Like, oh, this guy's just a crazy athlete, and he's so dangerous in space, and he can just do that. But, I mean, you got to think, if you run that play, if you put him in that exact scenario, 100 times, what percent of the time does he actually convert that 40-yard touchdown? Like, I got to feel like us getting to observe that
more often than a lot of quarterbacks.
For sure, but like way less than 50% of the time, right? That's like a 20%, 10% kind of play.
In that hypothetical. But I do like that's part of the value of Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Even in the bad games, he delivers big plays like that.
Right. I'm just saying we probably just observed him running a little hot, and that's what saved that game.
Maybe. But then you would also say he ran cold on the OPI to the guard.
Yeah. He did. I guess I'm more using that as a point to illustrate, like, I think that the floor on Fields can drop out just as hard or worse than Daniel Jones. And we just have seen Daniel Jones' pressure to sack ratio is really good this season. I think he's number 1 in the league still. I haven't looked after this week's stats, but I believe he's still number 1. Like, he's just doing the things that you can measure where it's like, hey, the quarterback has a lot of control over this thing. He's doing a lot better than he has. And so I think it's Jones over Fields for me. What about?
Yeah, I'm bought in. I'm bought into the kind of resurgence for Daniel Jones. I honestly am. I'm just like, there's a little thing in the back of my mind that's like, hey, it's only 4 weeks. Like, if before the season, you definitely would have wanted Justin Fields over Daniel Jones. Like, don't forget about that part. But what we've seen through 4 weeks is certainly strong enough to prefer Daniel Jones.
What about Drake May over Justin Fields?
Yeah, you probably want Drake May. Like,
what about Dak Prescott over Justin Fields?
Yeah, you probably want Dak.
Okay, last one, then we'll move on to another topic. Bo Nix or Justin Fields?
That one's a little harder. Like, you probably want, I don't know, that one feels about even. Like, I feel a lot better about the weekly floor on Justin Fields. A lot better about that. I think Bo Nix hits similar ceilings, and actually has a season long better floor. So probably slight edge. We're talking about redraft. I'd probably want Justin Fields for right now. Where if he gets benched, you just pick somebody else up. You prioritize less. You prefer the weekly floor right now to the lower bench risk further on in the season.
Yeah, I think it's Fields for me. Nix, I know Nix's stat line looks fine at the end of the game. he looked terrible, man. I don't know if you got to watch that game. Throws a terrible pick in the end zone. Like the majority of his stats are just, his receivers compiling yards after the catch. He has a couple good balls here and there, but again, this is against the Bengals defense, who's been just so easy to put up points against. And Bo Nix really made it look hard for the majority of that game. So I don't know. I think I'm like legitimately concerned about Bo Nix development going forward. It looks way too similar to how he started last season as well, where he's not processing super well. He's throwing bad interceptions. He's not on target. So for me, it's like, well, is what we saw in the latter half of last year, was that just like the positive volatility of who Bo Nix is as a player? And now we're seeing like the negative volatility, and this is how he is. Like he'll oscillate back and forth between the good and the bad Bo Nix. Because I feel like coming into this season, the consensus was, we saw Bo Nix take a step last year. He developed as the season went on. I think that's just not. I think it's hard to say that is the case. I think it's just much more likely that he's just probably a volatile player, probably not as good as he looked in the back half of last year.
Yeah, and so if I look at Bo Nix overall, he's got 6 adjusted yards per attempt, 5.4 per drop back. He's ran really hot on a touchdown rate, so he's at 5.1% on touchdown rate, which is one kind of higher end. I guess in his favor is still that they have this insanely good offensive line. Their pass block win rate is actually number 1 in the league. He's somehow getting the ball that fast as well, and he's throwing at so his O line is playing really well, and but he's getting it out fast with a low ADOT, which that's kind of a surprise. So I guess I'm with you where he's probably a lot closer to kind of like a league average passer, but the environment around him is very good, where he's got the Sean Payton offense, who can make things easier for him. He's got this insane offensive line, but when we see the great games from Bo Nix, we were probably wrong to think, he took a step. That's who he is now. He's probably just an okay passer in a phenomenal environment.
Yeah, I think we got to go back to the Field stuff because we have some questions in the chat. Fields has put up 30 in both games he's played, and we don't want him. He was well on his way to putting up basically 0 in the game where he left in the fourth quarter. So I don't think we get to throw that one out just because he got knocked out due to a concussion. He played the majority of the game and was putting up a stinker. And then I don't understand the Fields bench risk for Tyrod. Yeah, NFL teams won't just go out there and lose 17 in a row. And especially you've got a new head coach. Like, there's just not a way that Aaron Glenn goes out there and is like, I think we're just going to lose 17 with Justin Fields here. No changes necessary, boys. Looks good to me. Like, the Jets organizationally have not been terribly patient. So if you as a brand new head coach go there and you just put a dog shit product on the field for 17 weeks, it doesn't really matter how many points the guy's scoring for fantasy. The Jets ownership doesn't give a shit about that. They care that you are out there embarrassing them every week on national television, and they are not just going to lose game after game after game after game after game and do nothing about it. So the Fields bench
I'm going to be maybe and concede some things. So in terms of like Justin Fields as a weekly player, so if you look at his fantasy points per dropback, he scores 0.83 fantasy points per dropback, which is actually higher than anybody else in the NFL. So on a per dropback, because of his rushing, because of when he hits a bomb, he hits it. He is a good fantasy football quarterback. No pushback And like I said, you get good points from him when he plays. Where we're kind of pushing back on the bench risk, we're not saying that he's going to get benched next week. What we're saying is that the Jets are playing really badly right now. They're 0-4. They're making bad mistakes. They just lost like pretty handily to a Dolphins team that we thought were pretty awful. And what Zach is kind of getting into is like, hey, when a team is playing that badly, there is a risk that they bench their quarterback. Like that could just happen. Like if like I'm not saying it's the most likely outcome that the Jets just go 0-17. I don't think you are either, Zach. But what we're saying is, hey, what we're seeing right now is really bad. Like there's obviously a risk that the really bad continues, and if it does, like there's clearly a bench risk. Like I have a hard time how anybody cannot see that case.
Yeah, no, I think that's all we're saying. And I think it's really easy as fantasy players to over-index to the literal just, hey, how many I'm checking my fantasy app, how many fantasy points did Justin Fields score in this game? A lot. Cool. Yeah, Justin Fields rocks. He could never get benched. But that's not what these NFL teams are thinking. And also, Justin Fields is putting, like, there are really large negative plays that he's putting out there on tape. Like, he is taking bad sacks. Now, he had a really bad sack fumble. Now, it happened to be at the very best time you can take a sack fumble, which was on 4th down. And so it didn't really cost them. It was the same thing effectively as him just, not converting the
getting sacked
that they were going for, right? But it's not like he ran hot there because he does that on 3rd down. He does that on 2nd down. It wasn't like he was making a conscious decision. He was like, it's 4th down. I can really fuck up this one. Like, this is who he has been in the NFL. He makes these huge negative plays that are like, turnover, or even worse, like turnover, return for a touchdown level plays often. And that's the kind of stuff that NFL teams don't really tolerate if it's happening over and over and you're not winning. So that's just
when I was a young child, my mom used to say this about me: when Connor's good, he's really, really good. But when he's bad, he's really, really bad. And it's the same thing about Justin Fields. When Justin Fields has a bad play, it's really, really bad.
Yeah, if you could figure out a way to just like iron those out and remove those from his game, like if someone just got him to fix that, man, he would be such a good, like a legitimately really good NFL quarterback, even with all of his other shortcomings. If you just fix that, like, this guy no longer takes really bad negative plays and it's a thrown away pass or what have you. It's like, wow, this guy's great. All right, we spent too much time on Justin Fields. There's one more quarterback I wanted to talk about here that I think, a lot of the times we're doing this backwards looking analysis, trying to explain, hey, here's what happened, and then trying to give you some perspective on what's going forward. And we do like to share ones where we think, hey, this is a trend that we can get ahead of, or something where it maybe hasn't emerged yet, but it's a spot where we see it as advantageous. I think Baker Mayfield is set up to be a really, really fun upside play in the coming weeks. I mean, Godwin's back and plays 91% of the snaps or something like that, which is pretty crazy for the guy's first game back from injury. Looks pretty good too. Earned a lot of targets, earned same number of targets, basically identical air yards to Ibuka too. Like, looks like he will be a focal point of the offense. Didn't convert that into fantasy points, but that's just a 1 week blip, his very first week back. Like, I don't really think I'm here to, ready to say, oh yeah, Godwin's actually not going to be anything back, from the injury. So I think Baker Mayfield stands to benefit a ton from this, where we could see his adjusted yards per attempt go up a lot. Also, you got the ambiguity with the Bucky MRI that he's getting here.
Sorry, I know I'm interrupting here, but just to underline the Chris Godwin point. So he came back 91% route share, 25% targets per out run. So he got 10 targets for 151 air yards. So if you were looking at a buy low model right now based on week 4, Chris Godwin would be like the screaming buy low, and it's not like a fake Chris Olave buy low. It's like, no, we know this guy is really fucking good. We know the offensive environment is really good. That's going to hit.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be common, I think, for people to see those peripherals for Godwin and be excited about it going forward, right? You're not going to sneak that one past the goalie. I think it's more possible to sneak it past the goalie on Baker Mayfield because it's not like he's been bad to start the year, right? I just don't. I think that the real big ceiling outcomes, like what happens when Godwin converts a good chunk of those air yards from this last week, and you have Ibuka still playing as well as he has, and maybe you get the Bucs having to lean on the pass a little bit more if Bucky Irving is banged up or out, and they're having to rely on Rashad White or Sean Tucker more. Like, I think you're setting up for a perfect storm for Baker Mayfield to possibly move further right on the chart where he's having more dropbacks per game, and move up on the chart where he's having higher adjusted yards per attempt. And that is the true perfect storm. Also, Baker not a zero in the rushing game. Like, if you look at the size of his bubble here, he rushes about as much as Caleb Williams and Drake May, so he's a sneaky upside quarterback. I'm pretty excited about Baker here with Godwin back in the mix.
Yeah. And the one thing that I would kind of note about Baker so far is that if you look at their pass block win rate stuff on ESPN, they're like 30th in the league, and they just got Tristan Wirfs back. So do expect that do expect the pass blocking to. It's not just getting Chris Godwin back. Getting their key tackle back is huge as well.
Yeah, that's a great call out there. All right, let's move on to running backs here. I think we've spent enough time on the quarterback chart.
No, I think there's one other quarterback we should talk about is Justin Herbert.
Oh,
so the big thing for him is that they lost the tackle. They lost Joe Alt. And then he was playing the Giants as well, and the Giants just had this like fantastic. I don't think their team overall is that great, but they just have like 4 stud pass rushers, and so if you have to pass against them, that's like a pretty not low situation for you. And so I still want to think about this more myself. Like we've kind of been banging the drum on Justin Herbert is he's a tournament winning play every week, and they just lost their second of their 2 star tackles, and then Herbert had a week where he didn't play great because he's just getting chased around all game. Like, should we be kind of revising our ongoing Herbert million maker winner?
It's probably a meaningful downgrade. I mean, so Slater's obviously done for the year. Alt, I believe it was reported, is just a high ankle, so he will be back at some point during this year.
Okay.
But yeah, in these immediate weeks, I would expect that they probably just lean. I mean, we saw what they did. They leaned on Hampton, and I mean the Chargers are not afraid to lean into the run game. This year, so far, they've been really heavily leaning into the pass, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see them go the other direction here, just being down their 2 all-pro tackles, and lean into Hampton, who looked really good on Sunday, someone they spent a first-round draft pick on. You're making the job easier for your replacement offensive lineman, not being tasked to pass block. Run blocking is going to be easier for those guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Justin Herbert's dropbacks decrease here and the Chargers pass rate decrease a little bit. I don't want to say, oh yeah, he's dead for fantasy. I think he's a really good quarterback.
No.
I think they're not going to, even if you do see their pass rate decrease a little bit, like what they were coming out with was so high that you still probably get a pretty pass friendly environment. But yeah, it's a downgrade for sure. I think it'd be disingenuous to say anything else.
But then on the other hand, their next two opponents are the Commanders and then the Dolphins. Commanders at home and then at the Dolphins, which pretty some defenses that get beat up a lot. So I guess with the idea that Joe Alt will be back at some point in a couple of weeks, at least in the meantime, those are still some pretty juicy defenses to attack. But keeping in mind that it's not going to be like we were getting the absolute best environment before. It's not quite that anymore.
Yeah, good call there. All right, now let's move on to running backs.
Yes, sorry for everyone for. I knew we had we talked so much about Herbert in prior weeks. I didn't want to move on without.
No, I think that was a good note.
And so, I haven't looked at Zach. I haven't looked at your running back notes, but I guess we kind of covered Hampton a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about Hampton. The only note that I had here was he just looks like a super bell cow going forward. With between the Najee injury and then you lose Joe Alt, like all of the events that would happen to make your running back, consolidate work and get more opportunity are happening. The only other thing that could happen would be that the Chargers just start beating the brakes off teams. Like, I don't know, maybe they do that against a Commanders team if they don't have Jaden Daniels again, and maybe they do that against a bad Dolphins team with no Tyreek Hill. Who's to say? But yeah, Hampton looks very, very fun going forward. So
he had a 98% snap share in week 4.
Super involved in the passing game too. If you look at his last couple games, I think he's got Yeah. In the last couple games, I think he's rushed for over the last 200 yards and 2 scores, and then he's also got, I want to say, like 10 receptions between the last 2 games as well. So he's he's getting.
They had 43 dropbacks, and he ran a route on 40 or on 32 of those, so 74% route rate, and then he was pass blocking in 8 of those. So he's on the field for 40 of their 43 dropbacks. That's insane.
Seems good.
So, absolutely building the plane out of Hampton.
Yeah, I would hazard a guess that we only see more of that going forward in the near term.
So he's like a first round in redraft stuff. He's a first round pick now, right? Or
yeah,
direction stuff. He's like pushing.
He'd be into the first round. Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, if he's going to be a 95% snap share running back on the Chargers with Justin Herbert, like that's.
Yeah, I still think guys like CMC and Bijan and JT, I'll go ahead of him.
Really?
He probably. Yeah, I think.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe I'm too pilled, but if he's getting the same snap share as them, same kind of usage stuff, and he's younger, so you probably have a little bit less injury risk. I don't know. Like, I guess the one thing that potentially makes him a tier below them is because he is younger. There is some kind of potential that they like say, hey, Hampton, he's not quite so good at X, like, I don't know, this part of the game. So let's bring in some like dust balls who can do just that. But I don't know, first round pick back who they're already using at like 98% snap share. That's like.
Yeah, I mean, CMC is getting like double-digit targets every game, though, and 20 carries.
True.
So, and Jonathan Taylor is probably going to finish the season as the RB1, and Bijan Robinson's going to be nipping at his heels because he's also ultra involved in the passing game. So I think those 3 are pretty comfortably ahead of him. And then I would bet that Gibbs is up there as well. Maybe some people make the case of Hampton over Gibbs. I think it's probably Gibbs over Hampton. And then in the neighborhood with Hampton, where I think Hampton probably comes in ahead of these guys, but it wouldn't surprise me for the market to react differently. Is I bet you the market would put James Cook ahead of Hampton incorrectly, in my opinion. But I think all those guys are right around him, and then you got the strong receivers like I think Puka certainly probably is just the 101 with how the scarcity at the position. It's probably Puka, Amon-Ra, JSN in that first round, and then so Hampton near the back of the first, I think is probably
okay. So I guess the one note for Hampton is even though he had all those routes, still only 15% targets per run, which is not bad for a back, but he's probably a lot more in the category of check down running back when the other stuff doesn't work. He's not going to be a key part of your passing attack, which I think those other guys that you mentioned kind of are, with the exception of J2, who makes up for that in other ways.
Yeah, at least Gibbs, Bijan, and CMC are that way. And yeah, I would say probably from the receiving aspect, Hampton's like a notch below those guys as far as the intent and how to use them. But we're splitting it. Like, if you have Hampton on a team already, congratulations. Like, it's playing out very well for you. And if you're going to redraft him, like, he's going in the back of the first round. So, another guy who would probably be at that back of the first round conversation, but things are a little scary right now with him getting the MRI, is Bucky Irving. So I've seen a little bit of confusion on what the MRI is. It's been a busy day for me, so I haven't gotten to see if there are any additional news or reporting on the results of the MRI or anything like that. My read from watching the game, because he had the ankle injury that he came out from, but prior to that, he got absolutely rocked, just plastered on a hits the ground really hard, goes to the sideline, spends a good amount of time like kind of doing the squat down, like you just got your shit rocked kind of posture, sitting there on the sideline, comes back into the game, looked like shoulder, collarbone, and maybe ribs, like kind of that upper torso area on that hit. That's what I think the MRI is on, not the ankle. I think the ankle was just like a pretty minor tweak. And then he comes back in the game and runs good right after the ankle, has that 72-yard receiving touchdown. Like, I don't think it's the ankle. I think the MRI is for the upper body stuff. Still concerning.
Like collarbone or something?
Your shoulder. I think it's probably shoulder, given what they're,
okay.
That'd be my guess. So obviously, you're never happy when your running back's going in for an MRI. But I mean, Bucky
the MRI is just a routine checkup. T-shirt is getting a lot of questions.
But I mean, MRI aside, like, this guy's the truth. He looks like, if you were making me rank running backs who had the highest probability of turning in a legendary season for the rest of the way, Bucky's actually probably number one. The stuff holding JT back is just the slight lack of receiving. It's not like he's not involved as a receiver. He's just less so than Bucky, and Bucky's so involved as a receiver. Then it's probably, JT and Bijan right together, and then CMC, where CMC, your concern's the efficiency at this point. He's getting all the work, but lacking the efficiency. But Bucky, I think, you commented on them getting worse back for how it affects Baker. I think it affects Bucky pretty positively too. So if Bucky can get out of this MRI injury scare unscathed, I mean, it's a pretty hard thing to go and trade for him right now. I don't think any Bucky Irving managers are going to be, excited to get rid of him. Maybe you luck out and you find someone who's just scared about the injury and they're willing to panic sell at what they think is a high point. But Bucky, for me, if we were redrafting, probably it's like the 104 or right around there.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Okay, another guy.
I guess the only thing there is insider reporting that it is an ankle or foot injury.
Okay, I hadn't seen
according
that.
to Rappaport.
When did that come out?
Like 12 minutes ago.
Okay.
So you're forgiven.
All right.
So they're not ruling him out. He's sore. and his status is up in the air, is what they're saying. So I guess we just have to watch the practice participation reports. He's sore, so we'll see. We'll see how he's feeling. But you're right. I think. Sorry, you haven't said this on the thing yet, but your note is pick up Sean Tucker now, so that if this materializes into something, that you have a pretty nice contingent option there.
Yeah, Rashad White, also a good add if he's sitting there on waivers. Sean Tucker's the one with the higher upside because Rashad White just doesn't really have the juice, but you're probably more likely to get usable stuff out of Rashad White. I would expect that they try and give him first go at it. But last year when we saw Sean Tucker get a chance, he did pretty well. So he's certainly an exciting pickup option. The other guy that I wanted to talk about, who is producing like these top guys, or rather did produce like those top guys in his most recent game, is Genty, who finally gets his breakout game. He looks awesome, gets 3 touchdowns. The rest of the Raiders offense looks terrible in this game. I think they had 117 total passing yards. So Genty is just the whole offense. They still can't manage to pull it out just because the rest of the offense is so dysfunctional. But Genty finally does the stuff that got him drafted as a late first round, early second rounder in fantasy. Thoughts on Genty going forward?
So the one thing I do note about Genty is we're worried about his snap share. He did have an 85% snap share week 4. So that's pretty phenomenal. And I mean, Genty is like a top 10 overall running back pick in like an era where running backs are greatly devalued. So you obviously put massive signal on him playing hella good. Like that obviously. So like Genty is good. That to me, that's like that should be your strong heavy prior. So him playing really, really good, that's just a factual thing to me. And then I guess the concerns that you kind of layer in there are those kind of systematic risks for the offense. Do they hurt him? Not in this game, obviously, because he's so phenomenal. I don't know. I'm trying to thinking through this.
Well, let me add a little bit of cold water to this. Colton Miller, Raiders' best offensive lineman, got injured during the game. It did not look good. I believe it. Okay, yeah, I just looked it up. It did officially come out as a fractured ankle. He's on IR. So the Raiders' offensive line was already terrible, to the extent that prior to this game, Ashton Genty had more yards after contact than he had total rushing yards, meaning he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage basically every time. And so you add to that the Raiders' best offensive lineman by a good margin, by the way. Like Colton Miller was a good, not great NFL player, but on the Raiders, he was phenomenal compared to his peers. So you lose that, and you've already seen the woes that the bad offensive line have caused for Genty. I'm pretty concerned that this is what we've seen so far this season, where now part of the volatility in Genty's production so far this season had been the usage, like you mentioned. Like they weren't using him as much as they probably should for his skill set and how much better he is than their other backs. So hopefully this game helps to assuage some of the usage issues. I still think you're going to have the offensive line issues, though. So you probably get these really volatile box scores from him where it's, hey, it's a stat check every week. Is the Raiders' offensive line so bad that the defense just bottles up Genty before he can do anything? because he's more of like a downhill. Once he gets going, it's trouble type of player than like he's gonna make you miss in a phone booth type of player. Like Bucky Irving and Ashton Genty are really fantastic, like yin yang relationship where Bucky doesn't have the long speed that Genty does. Like Bucky's tackle breaking comes from like this elusiveness. Like when you watch Bucky play, he looks like he's made of some like fluid, or like he's not made of a solid, you know, like he's just so shifty and like gets around people in such an awesome way. Genty is more just like he's kind of made like Cam Scadaboo is, where he's running in open space, and like you see some of these backs where they're running towards a defender in open space and they're like, how do I set this guy up to make him miss? Cam Scadaboo and Ashton Genty are like, how do I inflict so much pain to this man that his grandfather feels it? You know, like Ashton Genty will just run you over. He also is so electric that he can make you miss in space, but he's not the same as like a Bucky Irving where he has that crazy short area quickness, where Bucky's doing stuff that's like, wow, if this guy were faster, he'd remind me of Barry Sanders. You know, Genty's not really that in that same way. So they're kind of a good like contrast off each other. But yeah, he's also a little like Derrick Henry-esque, where he needs to get that head of steam. He's so dangerous in space, but if they can bottle him up in the backfield, it's not great for him. So that's my concern with Genty going forward, is that you kind of get a profile similar to Derrick Henry, where you get these huge boom games where it's like, oh my God, he's getting going. He's having these breakaway runs. And also you get the games where he's just been bottled up in the backfield and the offensive line really hurts him.
So, the one thing, I guess if I'm building a pro Genty case, so he has 22 missed tackles forced this year on 68 attempts. So like, what's that? A 15% ish missed tackle percentage.
22 on 68, right?
22 on 60. Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I completely matted that wrong. So like, that's like 30. 22 divided by 68. Yeah, 32%. So like, to be fair, and then let's say we just compare Derrick Henry for a second. I appreciate everybody. So Derrick Henry has 4 on 49 attempts. So to be fair to Genty, phenomenal tackle breaker, which I don't think Derrick Henry has the same skills. He doesn't have that same ability. Certainly not at this stage of his career. But the issue for Genty is the offensive line, where you're going to get weeks where he's kind of bottled up. But he is a he is a phenomenal talent. It's just the Raiders aren't good at run blocking.
No.
And
yeah.
The other thing that I want to keep an eye on was 85% snap share. So Dylan Labe did not play an offensive snap in week 4. And I wonder if the reason Labe didn't play is because they weren't ever really in hurry up or like 2-minute drill situations or like kind of playing catch up mode. I wonder if his snap share was kind of aided by a good game script where they like the Raiders were never chasing the game. So I guess this to me the message is Genty really good. Raider that he is not a bust. He is not a reality bust. He is very good. We do have concerns about the offensive line. We still have some kind of concerns about the role, where if they're playing this game did not answer that question for me, and where could he be game scripted out? But still, that's still a risk. But you do take encouragement that like there's an underlining of like the phenomenal talent.
The Raiders also don't know what they're doing with their running back too. If you look at the snap shares week by week, you mentioned, oh, Lauby didn't play. That's because this week was Raheem Mostert. And the reason that Mostert didn't play as much in the previous weeks was because week 3 was actually Zamir White. They used Zamir White as the pass catching back in week 3, not Dylan Lauby. Dylan Lauby was week 2. So they have no fucking idea what they're doing with the running back too. They're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks there, probably because nothing was working for the first 3 weeks, right? They are stumbling around in the dark trying to figure out what works for them. And so that's the other concerning part for me. This is very clearly a team where they're like, we don't know what the fuck is going to work here. Like something's not working. So let's just try a bunch of stuff out. And like trying Zamir White out as your pass catching back does not inspire confidence for me. That's not a thing where I'm seeing that like, wow, creative problem solving by a really forward thinking coaching staff. Good stuff. Like that's like you guys are up a creek right now. Like you are grasping at straws to try and figure out this problem. And so hopefully they see this Genty game. The bullish case for Genty with all the weird RB2 stuff is Genty is the problem. The solution is we don't need or use an RB2 really. It's just whichever of these losers can come on the field and like take snaps and not fuck stuff up for us. That's who the RB2 is in that exact moment. But it's not like a role specific thing where it's like, oh, Lauby comes on the field because he's the good pass catcher. And we actually like Zamir White not to run routes, but we do like him in long down and distance for pass blocking. And we actually like Mostert best to spell Genty from a rushing game standpoint. Like your hope is none of that is a thing. It's just Ashton Genty is the dude. And whichever of these guys is closest to me when I tap him on the helmet to come in and give that guy a breather is who gets in there. So I think that's the bullish outlook for Genty. The bearish one is that the offensive line is probably going to be even worse going forward because they lose Colton Miller.
Yeah, that is concerning for sure. But we're still very excited about the talent. Very excited about the talent, about the profile, and we're rooting for that to win out. Your next note was about the Pittsburgh situation, which kind of very surprising that you have Kenneth Gainwell come in week 4 and seemingly play very well, and it's like, hey, did Kenneth Gainwell play himself into Jalen Warren's spot? Like that doesn't seem like a serious question, but I did actually see I saw that kind of question posed last week where he had like 7 missed tackles on 19 attempts. So like he had an insane game in like a primetime spot. Got 2 touchdowns, like 3 runs of over 10 yards.
Yeah, he looked halfway decent. He didn't look as good as Warren to me. And the Steelers over these first 3 weeks of the season also showed like that they think that Warren is better than Gainwell. It started with a little bit more of an equal split between Warren and Gainwell. Then it trended towards more and more Warren and less Gainwell. So I think they've probably already internally answered that question. But this certainly boosts this makes them feel much better about what they have in Kenneth Gainwell, where they needed him to step up. He did. I wouldn't say it was particularly surprising. Like for that showdown slate, as soon as Jalen Warren got ruled out, I played almost 100% Kenneth Gainwell in my lineups. He's my highest owned captain player.
Right. I wasn't surprised about his snap share. Like that seemed like a fair thing. I'm like he played insanely well.
He did.
We're just talking about Genty being the truth, and then Gainwell comes in with 7 missed tackles on 19 rush attempts. So like an even more insane kind of tackle breaking thing. But I do bet that a lot of that is just kind of it's a one-off. Like guy played a great game. That like let's not ignore who Kenneth Gainwell is over the course of his career.
Yeah, and they go into the bye here, so I would assume that gives time for Warren to get healthy. You probably see the split go back to closer to like a 60-40 Warren to Gainwell. It was trending to like a 70-30 Warren to Gainwell. Probably goes back closer to 60-40. You're still like Gainwell's a solid stash right now on your roster because in the event that Warren misses more time and the injury, gets re-aggravated, like you've seen that he'll get out there and get the work, and he's like you're totally happy to plug him in kind of RB2. But yeah, I still think it's probably Warren going forward. But yeah, good solid game from Gainwell, and nice to know, if you've got the roster spot for him, you already got him on your team, like he's a solid depth piece for you going forward.
Yeah, agreed. That's kind of proven elite contingent upside.
The next guy who we talked about him on the past couple weeks, but just need to reiterate, the Quinshon Judkins like bullishness just increases basically every week. He gets more and more of the work every week. You get to see him in bad game script this week, and it doesn't matter. He gets a bunch of green zone touches. I think did he get 21 carries? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, 21 attempts.
Like, dude, this guy, he's gonna, with where he went in drafts, like he's gonna be one of the very best picks of the season, highest win rate, highest advance rate kind of players. Now,
and what's kind of interesting is, so in the way that we show this chart is snap share. So he's still only a 60% snap share guy only. But what's interesting there is that when even though he only ran 14 routes, he got 4 targets on those 14 routes, and so he's and his targets per run is 22%, which is pretty high for a running back. So he's kind of one of those guys where when he's on the field, it's to get the ball.
Yeah.
So even though his snap share is not the best, he's a lot cheaper than these other guys. And then when he's on the field, he's getting the ball at a good frequency too.
Yeah, I'm, for the record, super, super bullish on Judkins going forward, but I just want to lay out the warts on the frog here. There's rumor that they're going to switch to Dylan Gabriel this week, and Joe Flacco is a check down to running back machine.
I think that's announced.
Okay, it's official now. So if they're switching to Dylan Gabriel, I'm worried that the Judkins targets might not be as great as they were this past week, just because that's a thing that Flacco does, where he checks down to his running backs quite a bit. So you might see that drop off a little bit. But the good news about Judkins getting those targets here is it's just proof of concept. Like, hey, this guy who caught passes in college still can do this here. It's not a thing where, oh, this is exclusively a Jerome Ford job, like or Dylan Sampson. Judkins can't be involved in the passing game. That's clearly not the case. Like, he's competent enough to do that. And he's just so clearly like the best of those 3 guys with the ball in his hands. So and he's competent enough as a pass catcher that it's not going to be something where it's like, but we'd rather have these other guys who aren't as good at the ball in their hands. Like, you just want Judkins on the field. So he's someone I'm very excited about going forward. Worried you could get some bumps in the road with the switch to Gabriel. However, it's not like Flacco's been playing very well. So it's kind of like what you said about Dart last week with the Russell Wilson to Dart transition. It's like, right. Well, it won't get that. If it does get worse, it won't get that much worse because it was already very bad. So that's your saving grace there. Like, the floor outcomes aren't all that much worse than the existing floor outcomes. So all in all, very, very bullish for Judkins, but just wanted to make the downsides clear there. We've got a couple rookie running backs here to talk about. I'm going to rattle off a couple of these pretty fast because I don't think we need to go into a ton of depth on them. But the RJ Harvey, so Harvey is on the backups chart. We don't need to switch to the backups chart yet. Actually, let's go ahead and switch to the backups chart because most of these next guys will be here on the backups chart. So we have RJ Harvey here near the bottom of this chart. He finally, and for people that haven't been obsessively consuming this show for multiple years, the way we do this RB snaps and usage chart is this is a rolling chart. So every 4 weeks, we will use the most recent 4 weeks of data to try and show emergent trends, because by the time it's week 12, we don't really care what you did for us in weeks 1 through 3. It's what have you done for me lately, so we can spot how these trends are changing in NFL backfields as the season progresses. So right now we're in week 4. We've still got all the data being reflected here. But RJ Harvey finally saw the way they were deploying him change, where Peyton said, rather than calling specific plays to have RJ Harvey come in and like, hey, this is your play, bud, it was drives where RJ Harvey and Dobbins were switching off on drives. And that resulted in a lot more work for RJ Harvey. As resident RJ Harvey truther, super excited about the player, really, really like him, have him on a ton of my teams, one of my most drafted players. Let me lay out some of the negatives I observed while watching this game, because I watched every single snap of this one. It was easy. It was in prime time. There were a couple plays where I watched RJ Harvey, and I think I sent something in our leg up rankings group chat. It's like, God damn it, RJ Harvey's like fumbling the bag here. He's blowing his shot. He had a couple runs that weren't the greatest. There's a pass, there's a route. He runs a wheel route out of the backfield. It's a downfield target. He's the look. Bo Nix throws it to him, and there's just a little miscommunication there. I don't know exactly whose fault it was, if it was Harvey's, if it was Nix's, but it looked like Nix wanted Harvey to keep going and just stay running full speed, and Harvey tried to throttle down, and the ball just barely sailed over his fingertips. Because Bo Nix has not been great this season, and because I have a bias towards RJ Harvey, I'm going to pretend that it was all Bo Nix's fault, and my sweet angel RJ Harvey could not have done anything wrong. The truth is probably that RJ Harvey messed up that route, and he should have been running full speed still. So he has a couple of those plays where I'm watching this, I'm like, God damn it, like this guy's finally getting the opportunity, and he's not making stuff happen. Then later in the game, he starts making stuff happen. He's getting a couple, like, not huge chunks, but like, good little 10, 12 yard runs, looks pretty good. He had a couple times where he like gets hit by a defender and just didn't look like the most powerful runner through contact. So, maybe Dobbins like beats him out for some goal line work. Just like me observing that with my eyes is like, between those two guys, Dobbins looks like he probably is going to be the stronger runner through contact. But Harvey looks good in the passing game later. He scores a touchdown, and the usage is just a substantial boost in this last week compared to how it has been. So I think this was the first flash, like beginning of the RJ Harvey genie might be hard to put back in the bottle. You just need one or two of his like really electric plays that he is basically destined to deliver. Like that's all this guy does. Like it's just huge explosive runs and take it to the house. So the additional opportunities for that to happen is going to be really good for him and help accelerate
So what we're saying is we're buying the higher snap rate that he got. So he was closer to like a 50% snap rate this week. We're buying that. Maybe not quite 50%, but the snap rate was higher. We're buying that as kind of like a stable going forward. And so he's at 41% snap rate. Pretty good. And I guess he's still a rookie, so he's still like potentially making mental errors. When I watch the game and I watch Harvey, he looks so much faster than Dobbins, like so much more likely to deliver explosive plays.
Oh, that's not up for discussion. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one.
So I'm agreeing with you. I don't think you're saying anything that I'm not saying. But as we move forward, we're looking for Harvey to use the extra opportunity to make clearer the difference between what he can give over Dobbins.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think if you wanna like fit square pegs into round holes here, you can just call J.K. Dobbins like older Mark Ingram and R.J. Harvey young Alvin Kamara, and that's a close enough comp in the Sean Payton offense to say that works. The one note I had on Dobbins, just from watching it, it is incorrect to say he's scared of contact, but where there are some runners where they see a guy in open space and they're either setting them up to miss, like they never throttle down. I'm running full speed, like a Like when you see Genty run in space, he's not throttling down. He's running at you. And then he's either going to make you miss or run through you. And it's just whatever he's in the mood to do, right? J.K. Dobbins is like almost exclusively a throttle down and try to like do a little jump cut or like, make you miss, like, but not in like a way that looks terribly dangerous as a runner. More just like in a, boy, I'd love to avoid a high-speed collision here type of way. He did that a couple times. Now, there were a few plays where it was just good, patient running. It was, hey, I'm letting my blocks develop. I'm just going to chill here. Like, I have blockers into the second level. I'm going to be patient. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when it's open space, it's J.K. Dobbins and a defender, no blockers in between him, and he slows down and, like, tries to break it down in front of them. I don't love that, especially, like, with a player like if you're one of these crazy shifty guys who, like, when you do that, it's because you're making someone leave their jock on the field. Whatever, man. You make that magic happen, Magic Man. But that's not what J.K. Dobbins' game is. So for me, it's just like, shit, man. I'd love to just see you finish that run. Just like, you're not going to juke this guy. Just run through him. Get like one more yard because you're going to fall forward and eat that contact on your face. But so there are. And I think we're really just saying a lot of the same stuff where it's like, yeah, Harvey looks like the better back, but Dobbins is playing well enough. He's not going to, don't get it twisted. We're not saying RJ Harvey's going to come and take all of the work. This is going to be a split backfield. But I think with Harvey, the hope is he looks like the type of player that could just be so efficient. It doesn't really matter if he's only getting 50% of the touches. He's pretty exciting going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we had a note here to touch on, what's his name? Xavier Scott for the Vikings. Where I think what you say here is, so obviously Jordan Mason has a little bit of contingent upside. He's still at he was at a 65% snap share in a in a game where the Vikings were chasing most of the game. So this is probably like the low point for Mason and the high point for a player like Scott. But it is clear that in games like this, Mason is not going to be an 80% snap share guy. That Xavier Scott does take a lot of the clear and obvious passing situations. So as excited as you are with Jordan Mason with no Aaron Jones, he's not the contingent upside isn't quite as great as we thought.
Yeah, this game just pours the cold water on the Jordan Mason ceiling outcomes where you're like, darn, because Xavier Scott came in for all the 2-minute drill stuff, and then when they were trailing late, it was Xavier Scott out there, and so just a little bit of a bummer if you're heavily invested in Jordan Mason because his role is increased, but it's not what it could be. If they were using him for 80% of the work and giving him more. Really, the thing is, you'd love to see him get some of these passing game opportunities, and that seems unlikely. With Xavier Scott performed pretty well there, so it's less about Xavier Scott being terribly fantasy relevant himself, more about that. Hey, this is a negative for Jordan Mason. So, two more rookies I wanted to touch on really quick that are on this backups chart. You get the Woody Marks breakout game. He's our cover boy, ends up with 2 touchdowns, gets a lot of opportunity this game. I think there's equal parts signal and noise in the outcome of this game. The signal is they wanted to use Woody Marks more. The noise is there won't be as many opportunities for the Texans to run the ball like they got to in this game, because the Texans seem pretty bad and they have a bad offensive line, and they just played the stone worst team in the NFL by a country mile. And I think very little of some other NFL teams, and I think the Titans are just complete and utter dog shit. So I'm hesitant to say this is the signal for the Woody Marks full breakout. It's obviously, if he's sitting there on waivers or something, you're obviously adding him. There is upside there. I want to pump the brakes and be like, don't get out over your skis on this guy. And this isn't 100% kind of your fab type of pickup, at least in my opinion. Do you read it similarly, or are you?
So I agree with you in that they got a bit of a cupcake matchup. The rush attempts for the team total rush attempts in this game will be around their season high. Where I maybe I lean into in a different direction to you is that when they pass more, that's going to be the Woody Mark show on our running back as well. So like he had a 60% snap share in week 4. In games where they pass even more, that's probably like 70 or 80%. It's there is a question of like how valuable is that, given that it's the Texans, but I don't know. Like Joe Mixon was going in 70 to 80% snap share role was going pretty high in drafts. And there's also I you may not have seen it, but there's like a clip where like somebody's mic'd up. It might be the coach himself, but after he makes a big run, D'Amico Ryan was like, "Look at that guy! Wow, that's our running back right there, or that's your back right there, DB." So like, they like this guy. This guy's gonna play a lot. I think also with him being a receiving back, I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. I want to. I mean, again, like if he's on your waivers, I'm certainly bidding aggressively on him. I'm just not like backing up the truck on it. It's one where it wouldn't surprise me at all for the next 3 weeks of Woody Mark's fantasy points to all be below 10. You know, I think.
Yeah. So the caution here is if I'm painting the bear case, it's he didn't have the best college profile. He wasn't the best college running back, where he was like he had a couple of injuries through college, but he was never the best college player. And then the Texans aren't the best team, so that does warrant some caution. But you know, like he's they clearly value this guy. Didn't they trade like around?
Yeah, they spent a lot of capital. I think they spent I want to say it was like 2/4 or something to get him. But yes, they
love this guy.
Yeah.
They decide to use him more. He plays really well. And I don't know.
I was probably too bearish on the potential usage, thinking that they were still. I mean, I do think they'll still have Nick Chubb involved. But I think you're right that they're incentivized to use him more, and this is probably what they want to do, right? And so a lot of the time teams will just lean into the behavior that they want to do. And Woody Marks just gave them, validation to like, hey, you guys are doing the right thing. Do more of that. So I think you're right that he probably gets a really good opportunity here, which is what makes him a good ad. My concerns are more profile related.
Right.
But there's definitely like even guys with bad profiles can turn out to be really good players, So
right.
It definitely can happen for him. The last rookie I wanted to touch on doesn't actually make the chart yet, but I bet you that he will in the coming weeks. That's Brashard Smith. So where Woody Marks did like kind of the loud breakout where like he gets 60% of the snaps and 2 scores and like is one of the highest scoring running backs on the week. So you're not sneaking that under the radar for anyone. Brashard Smith does it stealthily, where he doesn't have huge scoring, and the usage is better than it has been in the past, but not as huge as Woody Marks. But he is used early by the Chiefs. It's not like, the game was out of hand, so they put Brashard Smith in and let the rookie get a little bit of reps. They used him early in the game. They used him running between the tackles, which was different than they've deployed him in the past. I think the majority of his work is still going to be like hey, get the guy the ball in space, kind of pass catching back. But he looks pretty exciting to me. He's also just so clearly the best guy with the ball in his hand in that backfield. Pacheco gets the late receiving touchdown, and I think even helps to obscure the Brashard Smith usage a little bit more with that, just because it kind of helps hide. It's like, oh yeah, Pacheco is still involved. He got that stuff in the passing game. I do think that going forward, the plan by the Chiefs basically has to be to get Brashard Smith more involved in development.
Right.
He's probably
He got 4 rush attempts, 4 targets. So like that's like, even though he only had like a set 27% snap share, like they want to get this guy the ball. And
it's probably a slow burn like they have done with their other rookies in the past, right? Like we saw with Worthy last year, like we saw with Rashi the year before, where you could pick this in deeper leagues. This is a great ad to sit at the end of your bench. In a league where you maybe don't, like a less competitive home league where your bench is shorter, or there's other good players on the waivers, like say Kendre Miller is out on waivers. You're going to do Kendre Miller instead of Brashard Smith simply because you'll get to see it sooner because Kendre is already getting like a good amount of the work. But Brashard Smith, like in a competitive league where he's unowned, he's a very strong ad. In a home league, he's maybe just like a watch and wait kind of guy. Or if you have an empty roster slot and you can just stash him, he's a good stash. But he's pretty exciting going forward too.
Yeah, so I see he got 11 rush attempts to Kamara's 15. Kamara still keeps all the routes.
Kendre looked so much better as a runner, by the way. I don't know if you got to watch that game, but like Kendre when he
not
was
much of it, but I did see he had some nice runs. I did see that.
Yeah, but now Kamara still compiles like 70 yards, I think, but it's not great. It's a little less than 5 a carry. It looks not particularly special or anything. But watching Kendre looked pretty awesome to me, man. Like he's breaking tackles. There's not a ton of movement by the line, and Kendrick's still
like he's forced a committee.
Yes, he's forced a committee, and he's making the most out of
close
touches.
To 50-50 split on the rush attempts. It's probably like more like 70-30 in terms of total touches, but closer to 50-50 on rush attempts.
And this is the kind of thing where as the season progresses, it behooves the Saints to find out what they have in Kendre. Like you need to find out pretty quickly on Kendre Miller, right? Like I believe this is contract year for him. So like you need to find out if this is a player going forward.
They have to decide if they want to elect to use his well, no, they won't get a 5th-year option because he's a 3rd-round pick.
No, yeah, he was a 3rd-round pick. Yeah.
So this is I think this is year 3 for him.
Yeah, I'm pulling up. So yeah, I believe that it's contract year. But I'll pull up the contract here. But anyway, yeah, you gotta figure this out so you can make a decision on him, because going forward, like Alvin Kamara is not the plan next year. That is not a thing.
Right.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, 2026 is the final year of his rookie deal. Yeah, he's in his 3rd year right now. But it's still a thing where, first-year head coach, Kellen Moore, going to want to figure out if this is his guy going forward. You still want the clarity so you know if you're drafting a guy or not, and how much capital you're needing to invest in the position. So I would fully anticipate that by the money weeks, Kendre Miller is absolutely the guy, straight up. Like if you fast forward me to week 15 and you don't tell me anything other than what I've seen right now, I would bet you that I prefer Kendre Miller over Alvin Kamara just to start in my lineup by week 15, just with the information that I have to this point of the season. That
may seem like a bold take to some people, but if you just look at the trends, where we're week 4 and Kendre's already forced things to be where they are, it's pretty logical. Can we move?
Yeah, let's move on to tight ends here.
So it's an interesting week or interesting year so far for tight ends, where if you look at things like air yards, targets, routes, I feel like we're kind of right on Trey McBride. We're right on Brock Bowers. Like they're at the top in a lot of those categories. They just have not they've not cleared the board. Where like there's been guys who have hung around there. Where like Hunter Henry's had enough good weeks. Jake Ferguson has had enough good weeks. Juwan Johnson have had enough good weeks where it's still pretty clustered there. The one I guess the one kind of opinion I still have is that the weekly upside for a guy like Trey McBride and once Brock Bowers is fully healthy, it's a lot higher than those guys. And we're probably seeing a couple of floor games for them. So where I'm reading that is almost like the other tight ends can hang around with McBride and Bowers for a couple of weeks, but I really don't think this kind of thing can sustain over a full season. I still do strongly believe they will clear the bar by the time week 16 rolls around.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Basically, if you drafted McBride and Bowers right now, you're not super pleased with what you've gotten currently. I don't think it's like when I look at those teams that have those players, I'm not like, dead team. I'm more like, can I just get these guys into the playoffs? Like I like my chances there,
Right.
But I did want to talk about a couple of the other tight ends that are emerging as like
there's more interesting tight ends to talk about this week.
So like
I get it.
Tyler Warren, just like continuing his campaign of being very good his rookie season. I mean, I think this is, if I'm like putting this in the range of outcomes, like where this is for him, you want to call this like my thought is 80th percentile, like not like there are definitely outcomes that are even better than this for him. But this is for sure above a median outcome just based on the profile and the landing spot coming out. Do you think that's reasonable, or am I selling him short?
I mean, if I was gonna, I'd probably put it at like maybe 65 to 70, but that feels like splitting hairs.
Okay, yeah. So we're both of the opinion it's probably above a median outcome. It's definitely not his absolute ceiling outcome though. He's good, and they clearly basically the unfortunate truth to people of our particular persuasion is Josh Downs is the one that is kind of the odd man out here. Tyler Warren is more or less eating his lunch. Not that Downs isn't being used or involved. It's just that he already was a part-time player and that he runs the vast majority of his routes out of the slot. And then he now has another very good target earner on the team. And so it's just, hey, Downs is still going to run about the same amount of routes. It's just that his target share is going to be lower when he's on the field than it was in the past because there's another good guy to earn targets. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Tyler Warren here. He's definitely looking like a pretty good win at cost. The other one that I wanted to talk about, so Fannin has encouraging usage, but like a couple, he has a bad drop this week on a deep ball, but like it's a rookie tight end. You're pretty excited about it. He's competing with a guy. A note that I had on Njoku, this was actually courtesy of Pat Corain. He was sharing this in our one of our group chats for our main event team that we all co-manage together. But he's taking a look at the open score for tight ends, and David Njoku is dead last in open score, and he's behind Harold Fannin in route participation, behind Harold Fannin in total targets, even while having 20% more route participation than Harold Fannin. So it is well and truly in Jover for David Njoku. He is any team that I see that has David Njoku on it, I'm like, shit. Like, and I don't have many, but when I open up a roster and I'm like, who's my tight end? David Njoku? Damn it. Like, that's one where I wish I had those picks back. Literally, like, give me a random selection from that range of the draft over David Njoku. Might be like the literal nut worst pick you could make at that point of the draft. So,
yeah, and with Njoku, he's not just last. So I think he's last among all players in open score, but he's also dead last in tight ends in the overall score. So just to, I guess, give some
throw another shovel full of dirt on the coffin.
Right. So overall score, Fannin is like 49, which is like, it's not the best, but what's solid. Njoku is 36. Like Noah Gray is 39. like Travis Kelce, or sorry, yeah, it's like the 50 to 55 is like the normal range that a lot of these guys are in, whereas he's down in the dirt at 36. So like bad. It's been a pretty bad season so far for Njoku. One thing that I think is well, actually, just on some more stats here. Oh, I just pulled up the rushing thing, which we don't care about. So he's got 19 targets on 136 on 136 routes. So he's gotten okay targets. He just like, I guess he's not getting open. He's not really doing anything with those targets, and we'd already kind of heard the rumblings of them planning to trade Njoku. The one thing that I did think was interesting with Fannin is that even with his higher route participation, his alignment was not tight end. It wasn't like he was getting more snaps and they were telling Njoku to take a back seat. It was more along the lines of, so they gave him 7 snaps out of the backfield. They had 20 in the slot, 4 at wide. They even played him at O-line, which bizarre. But he had a really, really strong. Let me get Fannin's. He had a 71% route participation, which very encouraging after he was closer to 50% in week 3.
He's going to be volatile going forward. I mean, after week 1, we were like, oh my God, the breakout's happening and it's been expedited. There's going to be a lot of volatility here just because you're on a bad offense. Now they're changing to a rookie quarterback. So that could either be really good or really bad for him. You're hoping that Dylan Gabriel like ends up, Harold Fannin's his favorite target. And so that all works out. But it also can go the other way where, he's not a very good quarterback. He's not able to complete passes. He doesn't like targeting Fannin for whatever reason. He has a good connection with some of the other pass catchers. So wide range of outcomes here. I think the thing that we, would say is the ceiling on Harold Fannin is still really, really high, just because he basically isn't really a tight end. He's kind of in the weapon archetype. They think he's a good player and they like having him on the field. But we've done enough Harold Fannin talk. I want to talk about another rookie tight end who finally kind of had his little, not breakouts a little too strong, but like at least a mini flash. But Mason Taylor ends up getting a lot of targets, kind of a PPR scam night last night. Doesn't look fantastic. Like catches, he's not the most fluid pass catcher in the world. He catches a pass, tries to turn upfield. There's nothing but green grass in front of him. He just needs a couple more yards for a first down. Guy literally trips over his own 2 feet and falls down, just barely gets the first down, like almost ended up falling down short of the first down. And there was another play too, where I made like a mental note where he catches the ball, and I don't really know what he's not the most fluid. He's kind of got the baby deer legs going. So probably not like super duper high ceiling as a pass catcher, but involved, got a lot of targets.
Well, they said, hey, we want to get this guy involved more.
Yeah, you could do worse.
And they did. And you have all the systemic issues with the Jets offense that we mentioned before, right. But it's 74% route rate, 27% targets per run. So he got 7 targets, 52 air yards, and he did convert. He did catch. I think he caught 5 of those passes for like what was it? 5 of those passes for 65 yards. So. Pretty interesting. I know on one of the main event teams I have with some of the other legendary upside guys, we picked them up for $1 and we're pretty happy. We did that last week. We're pretty happy. We drafted them in the last round, cut him, and then pick them back up for $1. And I'm glad we did.
Yeah, no, that's the kind of guy where you're really happy to have that on your roster in tight end premium. That's like a super great depth piece. Another guy who could be an interesting depth piece, especially in tight end premium going forward, is Theo Johnson, just with the volatility around the quarterback change. Now, I don't want to like overly read into the trend in the game where Malik Neighbors tears his ACL, and so the game plan probably goes by the wayside. It's Jackson Dart's first game too, but Theo Johnson looked like he might be kind of Jackson Dart safety blanket. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets a little bit of the benefit from the reduced target competition from Neighbors being out. So he's just kind of like keep an eye on this guy. Nothing really to report other than that. The other one that I had nothing to report here, but I should say something. We talked about Cade Otton last week. Hey, maybe this is a spot where Cade Otton can earn some more target. No, don't worry about it. Cade Otton's not going to do anything this season. It's over. He's not. Like Cade Otton or Mason Taylor rest of season. Probably Mason Taylor. Like Cade Otton, Theo Johnson rest of season. Probably Theo Johnson. Like just give me the guys where there's at least a little bit of ambiguity into their upside. Cade Otton showed enough last year where I was willing to leave a light on for him that, hey, it's tight end. The position can take long to develop. But when you get the opportunity that Cade Otton had here where it's like, hey, everyone's hurt. It's Godwin's first game back from injury. You've got Ibuka, and those are really the only guys. And then Otton still can't really earn anything. Don't worry about him. Not really a fantasy relevant guy. The other one that there are a couple guys I just want to cross off the list of you do not need to worry about these guys anymore. They are just players you can kind of remove from your lexicon for this year as far as useful tight ends. Chig Okonkwo, don't worry about it. Titans offense so deceased that it doesn't really matter, and Chig still just looks like he's what Chig has been. And in the context of that poor of an offense, truly could not matter any less.
Well, there was also reporting. In the last game, Chig only had a 61% route share. Gunnar Helm had a 35%, and there's reporting now that Chig is he should get ready to learn Gunnar Helm. We want to use Gunnar Helm more going forward. So even more reason.
Yeah, Mark Andrews also, he's not in the fully dead category, but he saw his route share plummet with Isaiah Likely back healthy for this first week. If for some reason you have Mark Andrews in redraft, now would be the time to sell. I mean, last week was the time to sell, but now is really the time to sell. Just pennies on the dollar is totally fine, because this is not a player that you should be wanting to start in any week in a redraft. You're better off starting Hunter Henry. You'd start Brenton Strange probably over him. Even Cole Kmet is you're at the juncture of debating between Mark Andrews and Cole Kmet, which is a depressing place to be. So he's one where the value's going not to zero, but he's not like the Cade Otton send him to zero or the Chig send him to zero, but he's send him to near zero. He's not going to be super fun going forward.
Pretty fair. It's what's weird is Likely he got 20 routes. He didn't get any targets either, but you did have the Mark Andrews his route rate slashed to 58% or something like that. So I agree. What is it? It is 58% target route rate for Mark Andrews. So that is
that's backup chart level.
Yeah. He still got 8 targets for 39 air yards. So still involved, but the Mark Andrews that you knew and loved, he's dead and gone.
Yeah. Flip to the backup chart really quick. There, I couldn't remember if there was someone there that I had a quick note on. You talked about Gunnar Helm. Elijah Arroyo. doing some exciting adjacent things. However, really, really splitting time with AJ Barner. AJ Barner gets a nice little touchdown grab, looks good. Arroyo and Barner are both like probably not terribly relevant just because of the splitting work thing. But yeah, they're both out there.
The one thing in their favor. So Arroyo, he did get 61% at route rate in week 4, but that I don't think that's very many routes, or that equates to very many routes. 4 targets, 52 air yards, like that's something. Like that's maybe potentially that's probably rosterable in like in FFPC. Like that probably is rosterable. You have to be pretty desperate to play him, but it's rosterable.
Did you I only asked this because I know it'll bring you joy. Did you see the Evan Ingram targets in the Broncos game?
I saw your comments that he looked really bad.
It looks atrocious. It looks really bad, man. It's like the worst Evan Ingram has ever looked, which is saying a lot. I don't know if he's still hampered by the injury or what. I don't want to totally shit on the guy if he's just gutting it out there, but it looks like all of the worst parts of Evan Ingram that you're used to with none of the good.
Yeah. 2.3 ADOT.
It's bad, man. It's really bad.
14 air yards on 6 targets. And then like they're
just
getting
does absolutely nothing with it after the
Nate Adkins involved. Adam Troutman involved. Yeah, not great. I'm sad because I had a bit of Evan Ingram too, but yeah, like Arroyo or Evan Ingram rest of season.
Can I say neither and just take AJ Barner?
yeah. Like I guess I just wanted to underline how
it's over.
Unfortunate it is.
A guy that I want to just say a really quick thing. We're spending too much time on backup tight ends, but Dalton Kincaid being here on this chart is concerning. The guy is sun running the fuck out of touchdowns right now, but like he is not very much different than Dawson Knox. Okay, like just to be clear, like these players are relatively similar. Dalton Kincaid is the one that has the edge as far as fantasy production and routes, but not by a lot. And that's really all there is to say about that. He's running really hot on touchdowns. If you can sell him, that you got him in a redraft league, like selling him on name value and the fact that he scored touchdowns, this is a great time to get out, sell the top on Kincaid.
The one thing that's striking me, so I checked the ESPN Open Score. So Dalton Kincaid is the number 1 tight end in overall. He's like number 2 in open, but then number 1 in overall receiving. So that does suggest that he's playing well, but 60% route rate, then on the season 21% targets per run. So like at least he's getting targets. 157 air yards in 4 games. So the role is just not very strong, like, and it's not like he's a 3rd-year player, so it's not like the team like he has some breakout to give. So I agree with you. I guess my caveat is that he probably is playing well.
Yeah, and I just say you're not getting enough opportunity for it to really truly matter,
Right.
Like I'd rather have, Hunter Henry or, anyone.
Right,
that's
right. Maybe a higher touchdown rate is merited based on the good play in the offense, but not what he's been getting.
Yeah, nowhere close to. Dalton Kincaid is not going to score 17 touchdowns this season.
No. Yeah, you can bet your house on that. Okay, time to move on to receivers. The one thing that I noticed when I pulled up the receivers here is Garrett Wilson has ran every single route for the Jets this year. That's really impressive. We spent a little bit of time on him at the beginning, but That was something that kind of surprised me.
Yeah,
I guess
we can just put an underline on the Garrett Wilson talk from the beginning. Garrett Wilson, very good. Yeah, I think he's probably in a pretty appropriate part of the chart too. I don't really expect him to move very much. He's going to have really high weighted targets per route run because he's like clearly the best pass catcher on the team. And I think for any of the like run good you could say that he's also had equal and opposite run bad. Like he gets a bullshit offensive pass interference call that takes away a touchdown for him this last week. Like the guy's very good. He's going to score lots of fantasy points. Don't really like. I get that the natural inclination is like to worry about the Jets' environment here, and you're like, oh, how could it be good for Garrett Wilson? And I guess what we're saying is it doesn't really matter. You're already observing Garrett Wilson be good in this environment, like, and the environment's already bad. It's not like the environment was good and Garrett Wilson was good and now it's going to become bad. The environment was already bad and he's still a good fantasy asset. So I would not sweat Garrett Wilson or be worried about him going forward. He's like very, very strongly like top like 15 receiver talent wise and like probably top 24 fantasy wise pretty easily. Probably better than that, probably like top 18 fantasy receiver rest of the season. But anyway, a guy that's a chart neighbor here with Garrett Wilson, I think it's just happened long enough now that we kind of got to, I mean, we were drafting a bunch of Quentin Johnston because the price got so cheap. I don't think either of us were doing it with the expectation that he would. It feels so yucky to be like to say Quentin Johnston became the Chargers wide receiver one, and I don't even know that I'm capable of saying that yet. But at the very least, the Chargers have like a wide receiver one by committee right now, but Quentin Johnston is the one getting the deep stuff. Like he's the one getting the passes that are worth a ton for fantasy, and he's turning those into fantasy points, and he's doing it pretty consistently. So I don't know, man. What is he going to keep this up? Is this going to be something he does for the rest of the season?
So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a guy who's in like he's in the 90% route share. He gets like 100 air yards a game. His yardage total, I guess, is 84, which 84 a game, that's pretty good. He has run probably a little bit hot on touchdowns, especially with the 2 in week 2 and week 1 and stuff like that. But I do think that we need to probably change how we're looking at Quentin Johnston, where he's probably we just have to consider him as good now.
All right, here's the disgusting question, because you see Ladd McConkey at 40% weighted targets per route run versus his teammate who's at Quentin Johnston, who's at 60% targets per route run. You got to decide right now. You can only have one of them on your team rest of the season. Who do you want, Quentin Johnston?
Oh man,
McConkey?
Probably McConkey. Probably McConkey. Where you put enough weight on the prior that we had prior to the year, on him being good, and better than QJ. But it's pretty close. It's pretty close because of how well QJ has played so far this year.
Yeah, agree. Okay, a guy that I think is like, we talked about this player already, but look at where Chris Godwin is on the chart. Like north of 70% weighted targets per route run. We talked about the crazy air yards. Gets 10 targets first week back. Like this guy's running over 90% of the routes in his first week back. This is like screaming buy low. Chris Godwin, like right. Huge positive regression.
Drop the shit out of him on underdog battle royale stuff before he screams up during the week.
Yeah, really. Another guy I wanted to touch on really quick, Ted McMillan should be scoring so many more fantasy points than he is. It's just really, really rough with Bryce Young, man. Like Bryce is like doing everything that he can to suppress T-Max fantasy value, but I mean, he's out here. He's earning, great weighted targets per route run. Like, he looks phenomenal too. Whenever you are watching him play, you're like, before the season, people were making the comp to like, oh, he's gonna be like a Mike Evans, and there was a lot of pushback in the prospecting circles. There was pushback from people who said, no, he's not going to be like Mike Evans. He's more like a Drake London, like a big-bodied possession receiver. The truth is, he's just both of them. He looks every bit, like Mike Evans on the deeper stuff down the field. Like, he looks great as a contested catcher. He's great at tracking the ball. Like, he looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to see him as much in the possession receiver role. No doubt in my mind after seeing him play that he can do that too. But they're just using him out wide a lot. And I think that's just resulting in, probably a lot more volatility than there should be to this profile. Like, they should just be building the plane out of this guy and moving him around. And it's just not working.
He had the best freshman season of all time before, like, his was the best freshman season of all time until Jeremiah Smith had the best freshman season of all time last year. So, like, you're talking about like one of the best ever profiles, in my opinion, in T-Mac.
Yeah, he's awesome. I'm a full believer. Just after watching the limited amount of NFL games we've gotten to see him play, dude is very, very legitimate. If the Panthers get
so the way we use that is the first week that Bryce Young gets benched and it's the Red Rifle show, you play the shit out of that.
It's all the chips in the middle. It's take out a second mortgage, baby. Don't actually do that. Okay, only a couple more on this chart. I noticed I didn't remove CD because of the injury, but that's fine. We'll get him out of there.
Yeah, he's coming back.
Yeah, he will be back.
He's not even on a IR, right?
No, although I wouldn't be surprised if he misses 4 games or more.
Yeah.
Chris Olave, like the chalkiest of all chalk receivers in DFS this week, lets everybody down. Not only is he not scoring fantasy points, he actually had negative fantasy points at one point due to the Saints running the Philly special and Olave throwing the interception. Truly a comedy of errors. Eventually he gets in the end zone and rights the ship. I wonder with Chris Olave, I mean, you're getting so many targets. His expected fantasy points are like the highest among wide receivers by a good margin. The thing that I'm wondering is, I mean, we already are discounting it some because of the quality of the targets and how bad the offense is. But it's like, man, even when I discount it, even if I pretend it's half of what it is, it's still good, it's still useful. So I kind of wonder, is this a go back to the well spot on Chris Olave where
100%.
You hope
he opens the season
fit enough?
He opens this season with 13 targets, 10 targets, 13 targets. And then last week he had 5 targets. And I'd be willing to bet that it's going to be double-digit targets next week. It's not going to be 5 targets.
Okay.
Is the simple way I put it. He's going to have 100 air yards again. Like, the usage is going to be phenomenal. You hope that this is the week that it hits.
I have to talk about this one. Just purely selfish motivation. So Jameson Williams, hotly debated player over the summer, going at the 4-5 turn of drafts. I very frequently made the case that there really is not any meaningful difference from the distribution of fantasy points that you get from Jameson Williams and Jordan Addison. And I heard much weeping and gnashing of teeth and pushback to that idea. Well, Jordan Addison has played 1 game out of suspension with Carson Wentz. And I think I already prefer him to Jameson Williams. We have the leg up rankings chat. We cannot stop dogging Jameson Williams. Like, they keep saying how involved Jameson was going to be this summer. They give him the big contract. Every game, it's like, oh, there's super involved Jameson Williams again. Like he gets 8 targets this week. Don't delude yourself. Go watch the 8 targets. Tell me how many of those were remotely catchable, or even like, hey, this was intended to be caught. This was a real pass. Like there were, I'll say 3 and be conservative. There probably were 4, but there were 3 that were not even really like, this is a target to JMO. It was like, the ball has been thrown. The play is over. The closest player on the offense to the ball was Jameson Williams. There was no chance it ever was caught. Like, it's just, he is like pure boom bust. Does this guy catch a deep bomb, or does he get like a design target where he can like house call a quick slant or something like that? That's all the profile is, man. This is not a 4-5 turn player. Like,
no,
this is worse than Jordan Addison. This, like, that's what this profile is. Anyway, he's very cheap in DFS this week. I already saw a lot of people saying, oh, this is the JMO week. He got all these targets. And so I'm saying this he's
now. Totally a prayer yards DFS guy.
Yes.
Where when you definitely play him, you play him when he's cheap and the ownership is low.
Yeah, and I'm saying this now so that I can reverse mush him. So for all the slappies out there that we're going to play him regardless of what I said, now you have this clip so that when JMO smashes in week 5, you can come back and rub it in my face and say, oh, Zach, you're such an idiot. You said JMO would never get there, and he won me all the money in DFS week 5. And you're welcome. That's a service that I'm happy to provide. But I'm just telling you, Jameson Williams was one of the worst picks on the board this summer. So, all right, that's all for this wide receiver chart. Let's move on to the next one.
The other other one that I wanted to talk about or ask about is Jamar Chase, where he got 7 targets, 45 air yards. He's getting targeted a decent amount, and I saw there was like reporting that he was open against Surtain. Like, even though he got the Surtain treatment, they were like, he was open, and Browning just couldn't get him the ball. That's probably just one where it's just going to be volatile, right? Where like when you get the juicy matchups, it's going to be good, but the Jamar Chase stuff is just massively downgraded.
Yeah, they've had. You've actually seen the Bengals like handle this type of problem before. Burrow's missed time before. They've done it in a couple different ways. Option number 1 is I pretend I do not see it. I pretend I do not see the difference between Jake Browning and Joe Burrow. We'll just go out there and pretend nothing is amiss, and we'll just hope it works, which is what they did this week, and it didn't work. They've also done we don't have a quarterback, so Jamar Chase is now a running back through the air type of thing, where it is just bubble screen, bubble screen, bubble screen, bubble screen to Jamar Chase. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they just hammer that hard in the very near future, because they're floundering right now. Like, the Bengals need something to work, and he's their best player that they just gave a bajillion dollars to. Like, they're going to figure out a way to make it work. But yes, as far as like, where does Jamar Chase go if we redraft again? Today, he's probably like a second round, like late second round player. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that feels pretty fair.
And T. Higgins is a 8th round. Like, here's a disgusting one: T. Higgins or Michael Pittman rest of season.
Oh, I honestly, I'd probably be T. Higgins, but
I think I'm Michael Pittman. Yeah, man, it's bad.
I get it. I get it.
T. Higgins. All right, now let's go to the next chart. This next chart's super fun, and do you want to know why it's so fun? Because Puka fucking Nakua, baby. You look at Puka. He's just absolute monster.
It's crazy because, like, I don't believe it's the Rams' intention for him to be only an 85% route share guy.
Well, this is he gets injured and he comes out. He has to come out of games and stuff, and then he comes back in because he's a dog. But yeah,
he's still at I guess if I like last week, in the last 3 weeks, he still averaged an 87% route share. So there's not like a route issue. for him. It's just funny that he goes on this chart.
He does, and it's consistent though. I want to say last year he was like on the 40 to 70% routes chart for a while.
No, you're right. He was because of the
before
injuries.
graduating to this one. But yes, it's the injuries, and it's because I mean, not to get too much into like injury talk, but I mean, so much of it is Puka gets such an absurd amount of volume. Like injuries are a function of how much volume you get, right? Like how many really hard hits do you take over the course of an NFL game? And Puka just gets like double, triple, quadruple the volume that some guys get. So he is just going to get hurt a little more because it's a function of like injuries are a function of volume and production, you know, and that's just the way it is. But man, Puka is like, he's got to be the 101, right? You redraft right now, like you just want Puka 101. The gap between him and the next best wide receivers is just too great. And then we talked about how many of those running backs we were arguing over who's really the top one. It's like, yeah, that's why it's Puka 101, because it's so clearly him over the next receivers. And then there's this hodgepodge of running backs that are all good. Puka just clears by a good ways. Man, you want to talk about some of the other guys that are just greatly outperforming their draft costs. I mean, Puka's obviously doing it at the very highest echelon, from, you know, being a late first, early second round pick by the end of the summer to being the 101. But these other guys, Romeo Doubs, Wan'Dale Robinson, just monster smashes. Not great for redraft. Pretty hard to pick.
Yeah, so I'm looking at Doubs here, like 17% targets per run. Obviously ran very, very hot on the touchdowns. They had like 47 dropbacks against the Cowboys with the overtime. They've been at like, other than that, they've been at averaging 29 a game. So you're running super hot on Doubs right now, but still like excellent pick.
And he's leading the team
on a projection basis.
And he's leading the team in route rate too. So he's the guy that's out there all the time out of their other receivers. So like he's probably the favorite to lead them in fantasy points. But yes, it's
I'd project him for like 90% route rate going forward. Probably he's been that's where he's been with Jaden Reed down.
Really, really hard though to start. Like even though you see this monster game where he gets the 3 touchdowns, by the way, this isn't like some aberration where it's like, oh my gosh, Romeo Doubs yes, he's running hot on touchdowns, to be crystal clear, but of the wide receivers drafted in his draft class, he leads all of those wide receivers in touchdowns over the course of all of their careers by a decent clip now. I think he's up like 3 touchdowns to the next closest guy. So Doubs just has a nose for the end zone. He's good there. You know, there are players that seem to do better in the end zone versus not, or in those tight spaces, and he seems to be one of them. So he's definitely someone you're really happy to have on your rosters going forward. Not someone I'm terribly excited about in redraft because it's just going to be hard to start this guy. It's just going to be inconsistent. The other thing is, like, if you find yourself in a position where you're starting Romeo Doubs, it's probably because your other options aren't very good. And so you're probably, if you're at that point, you're like, okay, taking the good with the bad with Romeo Doubs, because you're like, I just need something, man. So I guess there's that. But he's the kind of guy where if I've already got good receivers, he's not a depth piece I'm super duper excited to hold, especially if it's stopping me from picking up someone with like really strong ceiling. I would say Wan'Dale is slightly different, but same vein, where like ceiling probably not great. Don't want to be a roster clogger for me, but someone I could plug in a gotta have it, you know, kind of spot, or like is my wide receiver 3 in redraft. The difference there is that with the Malik Neighbors injury and the Jackson Dart change, there's just going to be a lot of volatility there. So you could get an outcome. It's not the most likely outcome, but you could get the outcome where Wan'Dale becomes, you know, the target leader on the team. I mean, the guy earned 140 targets last year, but there's a lot of factors at play here, and it's going to be volatile.
Yeah, I don't want to read too much into it, but Wan'Dale Robinson 0.8 ADOT in week 4 with Jackson Dart.
Yeah, Dart did a lot of shorter stuff with Theo Johnson too, and then it looked like he was doing Darius Slayton more down the field. So yeah, I don't think it's the most likely thing that Wandale just becomes a super duper smash, but compared to Dobbs, I would say that he has just like a sliver more upside to where you can tell yourself like, hey, there's just a little volatility with the situation. It's probably the kind of thing you figure out in a week or two, though. It's not like you're not going to have to hold Wandale Robinson forever to know.
Yeah, he's going to be 100% route share guy or close to it. He probably will draw a fair amount of targets now in Neighbor's absence. But you really hope that he's not just a screen guy, a bubble screen guy. But you're right. We'll find out next week whether they use him down the field or not.
Quick note about a guy here on this chart, Calvin Ridley, 6 feet under. Start shoveling dirt. He ran less routes than Tyler Lockett this week. The drops that the Titans had enough of the drops, man. He's had terrible drop problems this year. It's been a career-long thing with Ridley. It's not a new thing. Most of the time, drops are not a particularly sticky stat for players. It's just like, hey, sometimes the ball hits you really hard in the hands and bounces off, man. What can you do? Not for Calvin Ridley. He's having legitimate issues catching the ball, which as a NFL wide receiver is a very important part of your job. And the Titans have reacted accordingly. And he ran like 41% of the routes this week. It's very bad. It's curtains. Alec
42% of routes, 3 targets, 30 yards.
Iomanner is the wide receiver one there. Not that it particularly matters.
He's up to 80%, 87% routes now. He got 5 targets for 44 yards. 84 air yards and 19% targets per run. So he's getting pretty good usage, but the Titans are not a good team. So that's like your wide receiver one on a bad team, which is, I mean, for 20th round pick in best ball, that's like phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
speaking of 20th round or late round picks in best ball, Keenan Allen was just setting the world ablaze for the first 3 weeks. However, he doesn't score a touchdown now. Let me verbal meme you, Dripko. Seth Rogen and Step Brothers, while the guys are wearing tuxedos. Now saying Keenan Allen was the wide receiver one on the Chargers seems a little fucked up because the box score much less appealing without the touchdowns. I mean, go back and I just need you take your finger, you put it real close, cover up that line in the box score where it says touchdown. I need you to look at the rest of the box score. And it doesn't look good for any of the weeks. It's like, I'm getting 60 yards. I'm getting 50 yards. I'm getting 50 yards. Like, it's not exciting, man. You're watching the Adam Thielenization of Keenan Allen. Okay. And
so you're looking at 8.5 targets a week. You're looking at, like you're saying, 57 yards a week. So, I still think that's a big win.
It is. It is. What I would expect as the season goes on is I don't expect Ladd to continue
stay where he is,
underperforming like he is. I would expect Gadsden to continue ascending. We saw Gadsden's snap share increase. Gadsden 2 weeks ago on only like 27% routes gets 8 targets, gets up to like 40% snap share this week. And also, please don't forget, Chargers drafted Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith. Keandre Lambert-Smith gets a target this last week. I think they want those other guys to work too. So if you told me to close my eyes and travel to the future, what does the Chargers passing game look like in the fantasy playoffs? I would say I'd hazard a guess that Keenan Allen's a lot less involved than he currently is. Not that he's a total zero, but I'd anticipate they at least are going to try to make one of those rookies a thing, or at the very least start mixing them in. And I would expect that Gadsden probably, gets mixed in a little bit more. And it wouldn't surprise me if Hampton's bell cow usage continues to where you start getting a little bit more of a squeeze on the receivers where this Keenan Allen, hey, 8 targets a game.
I mean, right now, let me summarize. Right now, he's a good cheap volume play. But being an older guy on an offense with a lot of younger pieces, he's very much at risk of that diminishing rapidly as we move forward on this season.
Thank you. That was much more succinct than the rant that I was going on. So,
But I agree 100%. You were laying it out in detail with the rationale, which helps people understand why you're saying it that way.
one other guy we got to talk about here, Jawan Jennings. I mean, my God, the 49ers are just cursed with injury. Ricky Pearsall has a PCL injury. Seems not good. I haven't seen any additional reporting yet on if he's going to miss time and how much time. Jennings has the ankle injury and gets absolutely obliterated with a rib injury, comes back in the game and plays. Guy's an absolute dog. You're basically in a position where the 49ers could very well not have Jawan Jennings and not have Ricky Pearsall next week. And I don't think that there's really, I mean, like, you're not going to see Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Demarcus Robinson like start earning all these targets. I think Christian McCaffrey is just going to get fed with a fire hose. And so if
it's like the cow meme where like Christian McCaffrey is like the cow that's been milked to death and the farmer coming with all the buckets.
Yes, that's a fantastic meme. But yeah, so I think how we can play it for the receivers is if either of these guys are active, even if you're docking them from a like efficiency standpoint because they're injured, like, oh, well, Ricky Pearsall's got the PCL, or oh, Jawan Jennings has the rib in the ankle. Like, I mean, shit, man, the passes have to go somewhere. Like, and it's probably going to literally be one real NFL wide receiver on the team. And then like, you're going to learn a name for the wide receiver 3 is going to be a guy you ain't never heard of before. And you'll probably never hear of again after this stretch. And then it's Christian McCaffrey getting 1 million targets. And then Jake Tongas. Like, so all that to say that opportunity is abundant in the 49ers pass catcher room. And you have Brock Purdy back. So I'd say this is a spot where if one of those two guys is playing and the other one's out, I'm probably just going to lean into the injury volatility and uncertainty and just say, do you know what? The opportunity is going to be there on a good offense. Like, if you're not healthy enough to do anything with it, so be it. But if that gets the market off of it and I get, 30% target share Jawan Jennings and I get to play him at like 5% ownership or something, I'll probably just do that.
Makes sense. I mean, he was for sure banged up. Where even though he had a 78% route share, he only had 13% targets per route run. But
he only gets like, how many targets was it? It was like 2-3 targets. 4. Okay.
It was maybe one of them was your fake throw out of bounds target.
Yeah.
But I get what you're kind of coming at a more contrarian thing. Whereas if everybody's just bought into this, like he's banged up, he's not going to play. The upside is enough that you'll hold your nose through that.
Yep. Yeah. All right, to the final chart. Let's close it out.
Yeah, let's take us home. And I guess the guys that we touched on when we looked at this chart last week were guys like Jalen Lane, Torrey Horton, Isaiah Bond. We didn't actually talk about Isaiah Bond, but I know there's been more interest in Bond given that Tillman has the injury.
Yeah, Bond, I believe, led the team in targets. I want to say tied with Harold Fannin this last week.
Yeah, he had 6 targets, 58 yards, 71% route share, 22% targets per run. I mean, it's the same thing that you're saying, where it's like, hey, Dylan Gabriel is going to be the quarterback. How enticing can it really be? But then he didn't have the best college profile, but like maybe a little worse than Matthew Golden, in terms of like college production stuff. But he was fast. He looks like the Browns are going to need him. I don't know. I think Bond is probably only really interesting to me in really deep stuff. I probably don't need to roster this guy.
Yeah, there's probably a better option, right? Like, I don't think we're I don't think either of us would be like, under no circumstances can you roster Isaiah Bond. It's just that there's very likely always going to be a better option than him out there. Like I'd float Malik Washington. Is pretty interesting with the Tyreek injury. Malik Washington, just from watching him, looks like he can play. Smaller school guy, but like pretty productive in college. My like one knock on watching him is he's like that archetype of player where when you watch him, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's been the most athletic guy. He's never had anyone close to his level of athleticism, like all through his career as a player. And now he's gotten to the NFL, and there are people that are as athletic as him. And so there's some of the stuff where you're like, dude, you did not need to do the like stop on a dime, jump backwards, jump cut, go forwards. Like you lost yardage there. Like I know in your head it looked way sicker and you were going to like break this for a touchdown. Not in the NFL, buddy. That's not to say he's bad with the ball in his hands. Like he's very good. There are plays where I'm like, oh dude, if you like just were better indexed to like, hey, this is the level of talent around me and like what I have to beat from a defender, and you could remove some of those plays where you're like, you're doing too much. Can we just like go forward here? That would be just like a decent level up for him where it's like, yeah, he gets the yards when they're there. And then when there's an opportunity, he has the juice to break it and do more. But there are times where I just want someone to tell him like, hey dude, just do less. Just like do a little less.
Right.
He looks like he can play, and there's opportunity there certainly. I think really with Malik Washington, you're wondering, is he going to absorb a bunch of the stuff, or is it going to like funnel through to Achan and Waddle or Waller? I think my money would be like, of the guys who gets the largest benefit to their fantasy value, it is probably Malik Washington. And then the guy who gets the second biggest boost to their value is probably Waddle, where Achan and Waller probably are just like, number one, I just don't think Waller's role can grow very much. I just don't think he'll be a full-time player. He's going to be like a pass-catching type of tight end that gets out on the field for limited snaps, and that's his thing. And then I think that
I'm glad you brought up Waller, because he is interesting where like they really didn't play him very much. Like he had, what was it?
27%, 30, yeah.
36% route share
on
28 dropbacks. But I think that came out to 10 routes, and he got 4 targets on those 10 routes, and 2 of them were touchdowns. Obviously, like that's like as good as it's going to get realistically at that kind of route share. I do think there'll be a bit of a ramp up. He probably settles at maybe like 50 or 60% of a route share. That they obviously will be concerned or cautious about like a soft tissue injury. In terms of like who gets the benefit from a Tyreek injury, the harder thing for me is that I think Tyreek was playing really well.
Yeah.
And so that's gonna be like a systemic hit to the offense where they lose a really good receiver. I'm probably a little bit less interested in like picking up those pieces.
Yeah.
Because it was already a struggling team, and they just lost one of their best players.
No, I think that's really well put. Definitely agree with you that systemically the offense probably gets a little worse. Tyreek was playing well. Like he looked good. Right up until his knee went totally the wrong direction for a human knee. But I think that of the guys where you've got the most like the biggest potential win is probably Malik Washington. Happens extraordinarily infrequently, where he's like this huge win that all of a sudden is like, I'm plugging this guy into my lineup every single week. But for me, he at least has the type of outcome that I'm looking for, where I'm like, yeah, I'll make a wager on this guy. But and I just think that the ceiling's capped enough with Waller, where it's like there's probably other tight ends I'd rather just have than him that are available. where I'm not particularly interested in like going after a guy who I think the cap's probably 50% route share. I'm like, sure, it could be like Dalton Kincaid, right? Where he gets a lot of the targets. And while he's out there, but he's just not running a full complement of routes. But like I just talked about,
Yeah, I mean they're gonna when they put Waller out there, it's gonna be to get him the ball,
right?
Like,
and I just talked about how I'm not interested in that with Dalton Kincaid, who you mentioned is playing very well for how much he's on the field.
Actually, to be fair, yeah, Kincaid is playing well. He's getting a 20% route share, or not route share, targets per run. But it kind of, I think that's a good comp, where it's like a part-time player who, when they get him on the field, it's to get him the ball.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Anyone else here?
The only thing I wanted to say about Jalen Lane and Horton, it's kind of as you were, where they're playing at not ideal snap rates, and I was hopeful for a bump on Jalen Lane with the McLaurin injury. That didn't materialize, so we're just kind of we're monitoring those guys, but we haven't really seen we haven't seen what we want to see yet from them.
Last question before we close this out here. Can you cut Travis Hunter?
I don't think you can yet. So I was looking at him earlier too, and so the good news is that he was up to a 70% route share last week. He got a 22% targets per run, so he got 5 targets at 51 air yards. And I think I heard as well that he actually didn't play any defense. They took him off of defense. I don't think you cut Travis Hunter yet. I still think he's a very talented player, like really, really talented player, that the Jags, they need to figure out how to get him going. Like their asses are getting like fired if they used all the capital on Travis Hunter, and they can't figure out a way to get him going.
they turn him into
a vested interest in making this work.
Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment. All right, I'll keep the faith with Travis Hunter one more week.
Give it another week.
All right, I think that'll do it for tonight. Thank you all for joining us here for the Week 4 show. We will see you back here next week for Week 5, first week with some buys. Man, really feels like the season's flying by, but I'm always happy to get to spend it on Tuesday nights with you, Draco.
Yeah, same to you. See you next week, everybody.